Chapter 3. Santiago as a destination versus a direction. Following the signs. The San Anton experience. Day 14, Burgos, San Anton, Castelleritz, 37 kilometers. I realized Santiago was no longer a place to reach, but a direction to follow, sign by sign. After a rest day in Burgos, I resumed my Camino, walking 30 kilometers through the misty rain of the Mesetas. The landscape was vast and quiet, and with every step I could feel the dampness settling into my clothes and bones. Fatigue crept in, and I was ready to stop at the next available hostel. Before checking in, I stepped into a small church in Hontanas, drawn by something unspoken. Inside, a quiet prayer corner had been set up, honoring spiritual leaders from various traditions around the world. I picked up Correo's book from my backpack, the only book I carried with me, and opened the marked page of the Merciful Prayer. As I read the words, a wave of deep gratitude washed over me, and then, almost as if the Camino itself was speaking, my inner voice gave me clear instructions. Keep walking. It made no sense. I was tired. My body was ready to stop. Yet, something in me knew this was a moment of trust. And so, despite my fatigue, I shouldered my backpack again and walked another 6 kilometers into the unknown. This decision led me to a place I could never have planned for. San Anton, the ruins of an ancient monastery just outside Castelleritz. The moment I arrived, the rain had cleared, and the golden afternoon sun streamed through the broken stone arches. It was breathtaking. There, tucked within the fallen walls, was a tiny refugio. Only a dozen beds, no electricity, no phone coverage, no internet, and only cold water. It was as simple and sacred as it gets. Perhaps because I had let go of control, I had found my way to this remarkable place. I was the first pilgrim to arrive that day, stepping into a silence unlike any other. Not the absence of sound, but a presence so full and alive. No human noise, only the gentle cooing of pigeons in the ruins, the rhythmic humming of bees, the whisper of the wind through the wildflowers, and countless butterflies dancing in the afternoon light. I sat down, journal in hand, and began sketching the scene, capturing the feeling of being held by something far greater than myself. In my diary, I find a beautiful sketch of the fallen church and a page full of business ideas around coaching. Interesting. It seems that the seed is taking its first little roots. By evening, only 2 more pilgrims had arrived. Franco from Italy and Theo, a French-African homeless pilgrim from Lyon, accompanied by his loyal German shepherd, Princess. Along with them were the 3 hospitalieras, the women who ran the refugio. These women had walked the Camino multiple times and now dedicated 2 weeks every year to serving other pilgrims. That night, gathered around a simple vegetarian meal of stew, the flicker of candlelight casting soft shadows against ancient stone, I felt a shift within me. These 3 wise women, long-term pilgrims, shared wisdom that books could never teach. Carrie from South Africa spoke of places to visit. Check out the Hospital del Alma and look for the wooden bike in Castelleritz. Nella from Poland nudged me gently. Consider taking the San Salvador route, and if you meet Bruno in San Nicolas, say hello when you pass. He gives amazing foot washing ceremonies if you stay the night. In their stories, I felt my rigid plans softening. I listened to trusted guides, opening my mind to new possibilities. That night, before crawling into my sleeping bag, I stepped outside into the cool night air. Above me, 1,000,000 stars stretched across the sky, the Milky Way glowing through the open roof of the ruined church, and the moonlight pouring in through the shattered Gothic windows. The scene was so staggeringly beautiful, so eternal, that I could only stand there, still my breath caught between awe and grace. Goosebumps ran over my skin, as if the universe itself whispered, "Surrender to the way." Something inside me shifted that night. From that moment on, I walked the Camino differently, not controlling it, though allowing it to unfold. Yes, structure, systems, and control have their place. They create a foundation for movement or success. But there's another level of synchronicity and opportunity that only reveals itself when we let go, when we move at the speed of presence rather than urgency. How many moments do we miss in business, relationships, and life because we are moving too fast, too focused on getting things done? The Camino taught me slowing down is not falling behind, it's opening the door to something greater. Hospital del Alma, the Temple of Silence. Day number 15, San Anton, Castorieritz, San Nicola. There's a certain magic that reveals itself only when you slow down, when you move not at the speed of urgency, though at the speed of love. It is when that you begin to notice the signs. Before leaving San Anton, the hospitalieras had shared a gentle invitation with Franco and me, a whispered recommendation to look out for a wooden bike in Castorieritz. Stop there and enter Hospital del Alma, they had said, also known as the Temple of Silence. It was a place known only to those who paid attention, a sanctuary hidden in plain sight. And so when we reached Castorieritz, we looked for it. A little green sign above the wooden bike read Hospital del Alma. There, tucked away inside a private home, we found a special place of worship created by Mao, an Italian pilgrim, and his Spanish companion, Nia. Over the years, they had transformed the space into a sanctuary, a refuge crafted from the wisdom of their countless caminos. Every room held artifacts and messages, reminders of journeys past, pieces of stories and insights gathered along the way. In the back of the garden, we discovered a natural cave that had been converted into a tiny space of worship, just barely large enough for one person to sit inside. A sacred space, humble and profound. The whole place radiated something indescribable, a deep sense of love, wisdom, and quiet knowing. What struck me most was how few pilgrims ever found this place. No signs marked its presence. No guidebooks mentioned it. It existed purely for those who slowed down enough to find it. In these days and weeks that followed, as I continued walking, I realized that none of the pilgrims I'd met afterwards had stumbled upon this treasure. I absorbed the sacred energy for almost an hour, reading the messages left behind by others, letting the silence settle into my bones. When I finally resumed my journey, I walked differently, softer, slower, more open. And I wondered how many other treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to notice. How much do we miss simply because we are chasing instead of seeing? By the way, the cover picture was taken walking the Camino outside San Nicola. Slowing down to the speed of love. What if you are being paid for the silence you hold? My coach Chris once asked me. When silence enters coaching, it becomes one of the most powerful tools. Presence. The true essence of being, not doing. I offer my clients, especially entrepreneurs, CEOs and CFOs, the space to slow down, to connect with their intuition, and to finally feel what has long remained unexpressed. It's about reconnecting with their emotions. If the emotion is anger, we don't rush past it. We feel it, and often we uncover the hidden sadness beneath, a loss, a grief tucked away. If it's shame, we don't suppress it either. We let it surface. Only then can it begin transforming into courage. This requires slowing down. I call it slowing down to the speed of love, because while the mind races ahead, our emotions move at their own pace. In a world of 8-second social media videos, and ever-shortening attention spans, true presence, the ability to sit with an emotion and simply feel, is becoming rare, especially in business. It's about slowing down enough to feel, especially those emotions buried for years. And it doesn't take long. Sometimes all it needs is 5 inconvenient minutes of silence. 5 uninterrupted minutes where someone isn't performing, fixing, or solving, though simply being with themselves. With high-paced executives, these small shifts in perception often create a major ripple effect. They are like cracks that let the light come through. The emotional release allows for micro changes in the direction of travel. Over time, the compounding of these 1% shifts create exponential, not linear, growth. The paradox: the outer expansion is born from the inner silence. This is what the Camino taught me: to walk at the rhythm of my emotions, to slow down and truly sense them, to allow what is hidden to emerge, and in that presence, transformation begins. And sometimes I wonder, what if I'm really paid for the depth of silence I can hold? In coaching, as in pilgrimage, we are not guiding people to a destination. We are merely helping them walk with awareness, one sign at a time. Turning around, foot washing at San Nicola. After leaving Castelleritz, I walked for a few hours with Franco. The Temple of Silence had deeply touched both of us. We spoke of deep topics: our beliefs, family ancestry, and our experiences with past lives and regression therapy. Around midday, we passed the newly renovated Church of San Nicola. It was too early to stop for the day, my restless saboteur pushing me forward. So we paused on the bench in front of the still closed hostel flying an Italian flag, drank some water, and resumed our walk, continuing until we reached the next tavern, where we stopped for a light lunch. After lunch, as I got up to leave, I suddenly realized I had left my walking stick at San Nicola. Something in me hesitated. I could have let it go, but something deeper nudged me. Turn around, go back. I said to Franco, see you on the journey. And I turned around, walking half an hour to retrieve my stick. When I returned to San Nicola, I had found my walking stick where I had left it. Bruno, the white-bearded host, had just opened the doors and greeted me in Italian. We stood at the entrance examining stamp booklets of the handful of Italian pilgrims wanting to check in. He was thorough. If you had taken a bus or skipped a section or traveled by bike, he would not accept you. To Bruno, the Camino was not about shortcuts. It was about walking every step, a sacred spiritual quest, connecting your footsteps. Bruno had walked 17 Caminos, covering over 12,000 kilometers. Now, with his knees no longer carrying him as before, he had become a servant to the way. Every spring he filled his old Mercedes with Italian cheese, pasta, wine, salami, and drove all the way from Italy just to serve 2 weeks as a hospitaliero in the simple, sacred place recently renovated by an Italian confraternity. At 6 o'clock, Bruno closed the doors and rang the church bell, calling the 12 pilgrims to join him at the altar. We gathered in the altar room, sitting in a semicircle of chairs, one for each guest. He and the local conducted a sacred foot-washing ritual. A single candle flickered on the altar as they spoke a prayer in quiet reverence. Then, kneeling before each one of us, they took our left foot in their hands, pouring water over it, cleansing it with care. As they washed, they whispered a blessing, a prayer that St. James and Jesus would forgive all our sins upon reaching Santiago. But first, we were invited to begin by forgiving ourselves. We closed with the Lord's Prayer, our voices echoing softly in the ancient walls. Then Bruno led us to a long wooden table in the heart of the church hostel bedroom building. He lit the candles, filling the space with warm light, and began to serve a feast made with love. An abundant 7-course menu, fresh garden salad, a steaming bowl of delicious minestrone, creamy risotto with porcini mushrooms, pasta formaggi italiani e salumi, and for dessert, colomba, the traditional Italian Easter cake. All of it accompanied by a deep, heavy Barbera in unmarked bottles from a friend's vineyard. It was not just a meal, it was a communion, a moment of deep presence, gratitude and grace. We mainly spoke Italian, as most of the pilgrims came from Italy, and to think I had almost walked past this experience. Had I not forgotten my walking stick, had I not returned around, I would have missed the sacred moment entirely. Sometimes the most profound gifts on the Camino are found in the places we are called to return to. Where in your life are you being gently nudged to turn around? Smart versus wise, following what feels alive. Day 16, San Nicolà, Villalcázar de Sirga, 32 kilometers. Bruno treated us to a typical Italian breakfast. Espresso from a moka pot and a few biscuits. I left joyfully, the morning sun at my back, crossing the old Roman bridge for the third time, this time with my stick. One of the most important mindset shifts I experienced on the Camino was this: move from destination to direction. Early in the journey, the signs I passed indicated distances. 760 kilometers to Santiago, 500 kilometers. At first, it's all about the outcome. How far did I walk today? Was it a good day in terms of distance? Now the deeper questions surface. Was today a fulfilling day? Did I have meaningful conversations? Did I see beauty? Did I meet God? This shift changed my perspective from destination to direction. It's the same in coaching and business. I now ask my clients, how do you know you're going in the right direction? Not just towards a goal, but toward what really matters. It's not about a fixed point. It's about orientation. It's about the goal behind the goal, like a compass, quietly aligning with something invisible, yet deeply trustworthy. In my former CFO mindset, I was trained to value data. Numbers matter. Smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, bring clarity and focus, especially when you have an organization or a team to align with a bigger mission. However, when you are creating something new, something alive, numbers aren't enough. You need to follow something deeper, your intuition, your gut, your energy, your life force energy. That's where the wise goals come in. Wise for wonder, what invites curiosity or soul expansion. Inspire, what makes your heart rise. Soulful, what feels aligned even if illogical. Experiment, what are you willing to try, not prove. In my coaching, I've seen countless business plans fail. Not because of bad math, because they lacked the vital energy. A single wrong assumption and the whole thing fell apart. When there's energy, creativity flows and people adapt. So I ask, where is the energy? What direction feels alive, even if uncertain? All great creators and entrepreneurs I've worked with have this inner sense of knowing. Yes, they make mistakes, sometimes expensive ones. When I ask them, they say, it failed. It was a passion project. I love doing it anyway. And often buried in those failures is a golden thread, a nugget of learning they reuse later. One piece becomes a new puzzle part in their next creation. So instead of judging the past, I ask, why was this perfect for you? Not in a sugar-coated way. What if this moment, even in its discomfort, is exactly the right stone on your path? I invite you to explore Christian Gruber's stories in the appendix. He is a master at finding golden opportunities in what initially seemed like a failure. From destination to direction. This mindset shift, moving away from certainty and toward alignment, has a massive impact during transitions. If you want absolute safety, stay small. If you're building something new, uncertainty is part of the deal. My coach Chris Joseph kept reminding me, creation is the best risk mitigation, rather than avoiding risk. Entrepreneurs embrace this. Problems are invitations to create. I have observed that often the greatest challenges for new entrepreneurs is shifting their thinking. As employees, they've trained themselves to think in categories of safety, often avoiding risk, focusing on guarantees, insurance, and safety and acknowledgement. Entrepreneurship is a different game. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. You might mitigate risk not by avoiding them, but by surrounding yourselves with the right who's. People who see what you can't see. When entrepreneurs invest in coaching, they do so to create. It's an energetic agreement. They embrace the pain of growth and reap the fruit in the form of personal and company growth, often deferring the reward. Living by agreements, not expectations. Just as direction gives us internal alignment, agreement gives us external clarity. Both reduce friction and increase flow. In my corporate life, I spent years operating in the land of expectations without even realizing it. The frustration was highest when unspoken assumptions filled the air, and everyone was supposed to know what was expected, often without ever specifically talking about it. It was a 50-50 responsibility mindset. Both parties share the burden, often assuming the other one gets it, but no one truly understanding it. When expectations weren't met, what followed was predictable: frustration, disappointment, or worse, disconnection. Expectations have a push energy, like a pointed stick or sword. You can feel it in your body. It's as if one person projects their desire, pressure, or demand onto the other, and the other has to absorb it or push back. It feels painless as long as you say yes. In teams, in leadership, and in partnerships, this energy creates pain and friction. The root cause of many conflicts isn't bad intent. It's unspoken expectation. It's exhausting. Often it's disguised in the rhetorical question, "We have an agreement, don't we?" with no safe space for a no. In my coaching journey, I learned something that helped me shift my mindset from Steve Chandler. Live by agreements, not expectations. Agreements change the game. They are 100-100. I take full responsibility for my side, and you take full responsibility for yours. It's not about hoping or guessing. It's about clarity. It's pull energy. Think of a rope or a strong handshake. Firm, clear, mutual. The power of an agreement lies in the no. What are we not agreeing to? What will we not do? The no reveals the boundary, the commitment, the truth, the knot at both ends of the rope. Built into a good agreement or consequence, not punishments, but clarity about what happens if one side isn't met. No drama, only loving truth. On my Camino, I made a few agreements with myself. I walk every step. No taxis, no shortcuts. I carry my backpack. No delivery service, no Jacotrans. I book only rest days in advance, trusting that a bed would appear each night. I walk the mornings in solitude, giving space for deeper reflection. I honor my integrity in how I walk my walk and how I walk my talk. These were not expectations. These were soul agreements, made with love, with intention, from freedom. And because they are agreements, they energized me rather than drained me. They gave me clarity when I was tired, focus when I was uncertain, and dignity when I was alone. In coaching, as in leadership, moving from expectation to agreement is one of the most powerful shifts you can make. It creates a field of integrity where each person stands tall, owns their side, and meets the other in truth. Expectation is weight, agreement is flight. Great leaders don't lead by assumption, they lead by agreement. From expectation to agreement, make it explicit and specific. Own your 100% and require the others to own theirs. Define the no boundaries and clarify the consequences. Here a reflection question. What if you checked on your 100-100 leadership by asking a simple question? What have we agreed upon? Please summarize our agreement. Who do you know in your network who would greatly benefit from making this mindset shift? What if you shared your insights from this chapter, expectation versus agreement, with this person? Take the road less traveled. Day 18, Moratinos, Calzadilla de los Homanelos, 24 kilometers. Which way to take? On the Camino, life often presents literal forks in the road. Some lead to comfort, villages dotted with cafes, bars, and a variety of albergue. Others invite you into solitude and the unknown. Outside Sahagún, one of those choices awaited. I had just met Martin from Ireland over fresh coffee and delicious pastry in a bakery. Which road will you take, modern or the old Roman road? He asked. Let's walk the path less traveled by. The main road is too crowded for my taste, I replied. We turned away from the modern path and stepped onto the Via Traiana, the ancient dirt track built by Roman soldiers. There were no bars, no shops, and no distractions. Just a long, dusty road stretching through dry fields, crackling in the sun, and the rhythmic crunch of our boots grounding us in the present moment. Somewhere halfway, under the sparse shade of a few trees around an old stone well, we refreshed our water and stopped for a short picnic. It felt timeless, almost like in Roman days. When we finally reached Calzadilla de los Hermanilos, weary yet content, we checked into Casa de Cura, a humble yet heart-filled albergue run by a couple, Emma and Leo. Their story felt like a whispered gift from the Camino. Emma had inherited the house from her parents. One day, many moons ago, a pilgrim named Leo stopped there to rest. He stayed a night and walked on. The Camino had planted something in his heart. After reaching Santiago, he turned around and walked all the way back, not just to the village, but to Emma. He courted her, they fell in love, he never left again. Today, they run the albergue together with their little daughter. Leo, it turned out, is not only a passionate cook, but also a born entertainer. Dinner that night was a performance. Each dish was served with a song, a joke, or an imitation of the languages spoken by the different guests. He brought food to the table like a magician pulling laughter from thin air. We didn't just eat, we celebrated and laughed wholeheartedly. There in that little village with a long name, I was reminded of something beautiful. Sometimes taking the road less traveled doesn't lead you faster to your destination. It just might lead you straight into someone's heart. Kintsugi, the Golden Cracks. Day 20. Mansilla de las Mulas, León. Are you on the way out or on the way home? Vali from Germany asked me this profound and simple question. Some stories on the Camino don't arrive with trumpets. They arrive quietly like morning mist, soft, gentle, and unforgettable. I met Vali on the long stretch toward Mansilla de las Mulas. A fellow German, she was walking the Camino for the second time. This time not for promise, this time for herself. 2 years ago, she had walked the first Camino with a vow in her heart. Her daughter had suffered a severe accident as a small child. The prognosis had been grim. Doctors had little hope she would ever walk or live independently. Vali cared for her daughter with unwavering love and promised that, should her daughter reach adulthood and find her independence, she would walk the Camino de Santiago in gratitude. Her daughter not only healed but flourished. On her 18th birthday, she was able to walk alone. So Vali honored her promise and walked the Camino. Life, with its unpredictable rhythm, had other trials in store. Shortly after returning to Germany, Vali was diagnosed with cancer. She underwent treatment, endured the fatigue and fear, and when the doctors recommended rehabilitation, she chose something different. I need to walk again, she told me, this time for myself. Her story reminded me of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with golden lacquer. Instead of hiding the cracks, kintsugi highlights them. The broken parts are not flaws. They become the most beautiful elements of the piece. Symbols of survival, love, and care. Vali was walking her crux into gold. There was something radiant in her presence. Not flashy, not loud, but golden. The kind of gold that only appears when you have faced the breaking and chosen again and again to love yourself anyway. On the Camino, we all carry something fragile inside. A wound, a story, a crack. With each step, with each sunrise, the glue of presence, courage, and grace does its quiet work. Maybe that's what the Camino really is. A long, winding path of kintsugi, where we don't just walk toward a destination, we walk ourselves whole. I contacted Vali recently and she had just celebrated her 60th birthday, still walking with joy and letting her light shine bright. Rest Day Reflections from Leon, Day 21. In Leon, I booked a bed in an Airbnb loft that overlooked the main pedestrian street. It was the perfect place to take a rest day. Here are a few reflections from my diary. Sometimes you are a student, sometimes you are a teacher. Walking the extra mile will be rewarded with an extraordinary experience. Treat your body with kindness. Massages and energy healings are acts of kindness. First you walk the path, and then the path walks you. If there's a fork in the road, choose the path less traveled. Are you on the way out or the way home? A question from Bali.